So remember when fast food was wild, weird, and honestly way cheaper? Before McDonald's took over, there were burger barns, beer-steamed hot dogs, and chicken chains that disappeared fast. Some were huge until, well, they just weren't anymore. Let's take a trip back in time and remember 15 forgotten fast food joints. We're talking about chains lost in time. First off, Burger Chef. In the golden age of American fast food, Burger Chef stood as a titan among giants, with over 1,200 locations at its peak. This burger powerhouse was once McDonald's fiercest competitor. While today's kids might squeal with delight at the prospect of a Happy Meal toy, they've actually got Burger Chef to thank for the concept. Long before Ronald McDonald got into the toy business, Burger Chef pioneered the first kids' meal called the Fun Meal, complete with toys and special packaging that made mealtime an adventure for the whole family. But Burger Chef wasn't just about catering to children. They introduced the Works Bar, where customers could customize their burgers with an array of toppings, an early version of the build-your-own concept that chains like Five Guys would later popularize. Their signature sandwich, the Big Chef, rivaled the Big Mac in both size and popularity, sparking what some food historians call the first true burger wars of American fast food. Despite their innovation, poor management decisions began to plague the company by the mid-1970s. The fatal blow came when they were purchased by General Foods, a company with little experience running restaurants. By 1982, most locations were sold off to Hardee's, and the Burger Chef name slowly faded from American roadsides, leaving behind only memories and a handful of nostalgic TV commercials that occasionally resurface. Now, let's talk about Howard Johnson's. The distinctive orange roof and turquoise spire of Howard Johnson's restaurants were once as much a part of the American landscape as white picket fences. Hard as it may be to believe, Hojo's wasn't just another restaurant chain. It was the largest restaurant chain in America for decades, boasting over 1,000 locations in its heyday. The company, which started as a humble ice cream stand in Quincy, Massachusetts, became the cornerstone of American road trip dining. Howard Johnson's claim to fame wasn't speed, it was variety and quality. Their legendary 28 flavors of ice cream predated the creative concoctions of Ben & Jerry's by half a century. While other chains were focusing on burgers and fries, Hojo's offered everything from their famous fried clams to tender sweet frankfurters. The decline of Howard Johnson's parallels the rise of America's interstate highway system and the faster food joints that popped up along these new roads. As families began prioritizing speed over experience, Hojo's sit-down model became increasingly outdated. The final Hojo's restaurant, located in Lake George, New York, closed its doors in 2017, marking the end of an era in American dining. For baby boomers, the memory of sliding into an orange booth at Howard Johnson's remains a cherished piece of Americana that no modern fast food experience has quite matched. Replicated Red Barn. You didn't need a map to find a Red Barn restaurant, you just looked for the actual barn. In a stroke of marketing genius, Red Barn built their restaurants in the shape of bright red barns, complete with the distinctive sloped roof and cupola. This agricultural-themed chain spread across North America with over 400 locations during the 1960s and 70s, bringing a touch of rural charm to even the most urban settings. Red Barn's menu featured cleverly named items that stuck to the farming theme. Their signature burger, the Big Barney, arrived years before McDonald's Big Mac and featured 2 beef patties, special sauce, and toppings that made it a formidable competitor in the burger wars. For those with a bigger appetite, there was the Barn Buster, which really pushed the envelope of how much food could legally be piled onto a single bun. Their television jingle, "When the Hungries hit the Red Barn," became an earworm for an entire generation. Despite its clever concept and loyal following, Red Barn suffered from poor management decisions and ownership changes. The parent company, Servomation, was acquired by Motel 6, which had little interest in running a restaurant chain. Without proper leadership, Red Barn locations began closing throughout the late 1970s, and by the mid-1980s, the chain had all but disappeared from the American landscape, leaving customers wondering where their next barnbuster would come from. Today, a handful of former Red Barn buildings still dot the countryside, repurposed as everything from local restaurants to insurance offices, their distinctive barn shape serving as an architectural reminder of this once thriving chain. It's a perfect snapshot of America's fast food history that continues to trigger waves of nostalgia for those who remember the taste of their farm-fresh burgers. Before there was IHOP or Denny's on every corner, Sambos dominated the breakfast scene in America. Starting as a single pancake house in Santa Barbara, California, this chain exploded across the country, reaching an impressive 1,117 locations in its glory days. Their success formula was simple, affordable breakfast served all day, comfortable booths and a family-friendly atmosphere. The name Sambos came from combining the names of its founders, Sam Battistone and Newell Burnett. However, many Americans associated it with the controversial children's book Little Black. So, the film has ventilation holes because, well, fresh berries require air. From here, the containers go off to a refrigerated warehouse to await shipping to the store by refrigerated truck. And, provided they remain refrigerated, the blueberries remain fresh and juicy for about 10 to 12 days. Berry baskets. Long before the development of pottery, people looked to the forest for containment materials. They made berry baskets from the bark of birch trees. The baskets were lightweight and waterproof due to natural resins in the bark. The making of these baskets is a tradition that carries on. For containing nature's bounty, birch bark is a natural choice. This berry basket is made entirely from materials found in nature. Making one starts with birch bark that's been carefully pried off the tree to avoid damage to the inner layer of bark. This cardboard pattern will be used as a template. The basket maker examines the bark for any holes or serious flaws. He flips the bark over. He'll use the inner side for the outside of the basket. He traces around the pattern using a scribe that lightly scores the bark. This light scoring creates a visible outline on the bark. So, using scissors for cutting leather, he follows the pattern lines to cut the bark to the pattern shape. The contours, though, are harder to follow, so he switches to scissors with curved blades to cut them out. Next, he punches holes in the basket corners. This will stop the bark from splitting in these spots when it's folded. Using a pointed instrument known as a divider, he now etches stitch lines around the perimeter. He maps out the location for the stitch holes by lightly piercing the bark along the etched lines. Using a ruler for support, he bends the flaps of the pattern up, creating creases that will become permanent folds later. He then punches out stitch holes where he had lightly pierced the bark. He drapes a damp towel over the birch bark and irons it. This softens the bark so that it doesn't split as he now forms the final bends along the crease lines. He overlaps the ends of the basket, then he clips the structure to hold it together, while he inserts wooden dowels in some of the stitch holes. Once the dowels are in, he removes the clips. The dowels will keep the basket together for stitching. But first, he tapers the stem from a willow shrub using a wood plane. He inserts the stem in a cylindrical container and fills the cylinder with hot water. The tapered stem soaks overnight. It softens and becomes extremely flexible. Using a wooden form, he shapes the stem into a ring, making sure the tapered ends overlap for a consistent thickness all the way around. He clips the ring to the inner rim of the basket and also tacks it in place with a few stitches. This willow ring will add support to the lip of the berry basket. Next, he stitches the seams together using the root of a spruce tree for thread. Its tapered tip serves as a needle. He does precise back stitches and ensures all the seams are tight. Moving back to the rim of the basket, he punctures the bark just below the willow ring, creating a row of holes to loop the root around the rim. This spruce root wrap protects the rim ring and gives the basket a more finished look at the top. He slices a piece of cedar bark into long, narrow strips. He'll use these strips to make a handle for the basket. He weaves the cedar into a 5-strand braid. He loops the cedar braid at the ends and uses the loops to stitch the handle to the berry basket. It takes this artisan about a day to craft a birch bark berry basket. His efforts will no doubt bear fruit for many years to come. Happened in one-word drive-thrus. While Henry's was perfecting car hop service, McDonald's was pioneering the drive-through window. Customers, increasingly preferred the speed and privacy of the drive-through to the car hop experience. By the late 1960s, Henry's was already losing ground, and the oil crisis of the 1970s delivered the knockout punch. Today, just one Henry's Hamburgers remains operational in Benton Harbor, Michigan, serving the original recipe burgers to nostalgic customers and curious food tourists. The lone survivor stands as a time capsule of 1950s Americana, proof that sometimes staying small and true to your roots is the secret to longevity in the fast food world. Gino's Hamburgers. Football and fast food might seem like an odd combination, but it proved to be a winning recipe for Gino's Hamburgers. Founded by Baltimore Colts defensive end Gino Marchetti along with several teammates, this chain brought star power to the burger business decades before celebrity restaurants became trendy. Who could resist a burger endorsed by football heroes? The chain started in Baltimore but quickly expanded throughout the East Coast, eventually reaching more than 350 locations. Their signature sandwich, the Gino Giant, featured the slogan, "Everybody goes for a giant at Gino's," and gave the Big Mac some serious competition. What made Gino's unique was the blend of fast food and sports culture. Restaurants were decorated with football memorabilia, and occasional visits from Colts players made dinner at Gino's an event. Gino's secured the first Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises in the region, making many Gino's restaurants combination establishments serving both burgers and the Colonel's famous chicken. This dual menu approach boosted profits and helped the chain expand rapidly through the 1960s and early 1970s. The success story came to an end in 1982 when Marriott Corporation purchased Gino's for $48 million and converted most locations into Roy Rogers restaurants. The football players who had become restaurant moguls cashed out, and the Gino's name disappeared from the landscape. If imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, then White Castle should have felt extremely flattered by White Tower. This copycat chain didn't just borrow ideas, they essentially photocopied the entire White Castle concept, from the building design right down to the employee uniforms. White Tower's founders took one look at White Castle's success with small square burgers served in distinctive white buildings and thought, let's do exactly that, but change one word in the name. The audacity worked, at least for a while. White Tower expanded to over 230 locations, primarily in the Midwest and East Coast. Their sliders cost just 5 cents in the early days, making them affordable even during the Great Depression. The buildings featured distinctive white exteriors with castle-like turrets, a design that made them easily recognizable from blocks away. White Castle wasn't amused by the flattery and sued White Tower in 1937 for copyright infringement. The court ordered White Tower to change its building design and stop copying White Castle's marketing materials. This forced rebranding, combined with changing food trends after World War II, started the chain's slow decline. Unlike many other forgotten chains, White Tower didn't disappear in a dramatic bankruptcy. Instead, it slowly faded away, location by location, throughout the 1970s. The last White Tower closed in Toledo, Ohio in 2004, ending a 78-year run of burger imitation. Dog and Suds. Nothing captures the carefree spirit of 1950s America quite like a drive-in restaurant, and Dog and Suds perfected the formula. This chain specialized in two American classics, hot dogs and root beer, served directly to your car window by car hops, often on roller skates. At its peak, over 600 Dog and Suds locations dotted the American landscape, turning parking lots into social hubs where teenagers would gather in their cars. The chain began as a single location in Champaign, Illinois, founded by two music teachers looking for a summer business. Their homemade root beer recipe became so popular that they abandoned teaching to focus on expansion. Dog and Suds grew through a franchise model that allowed local entrepreneurs to bring the concept to their communities, spreading rapidly through the Midwest. What made Dog and Suds special wasn't just the food, but the experience. The car hop would attach a metal tray to your car window, and you could enjoy your meal without ever leaving your vehicle. Their Texas Burger Coney Dog and signature creamy root beer created a simple but irresistible menu that kept customers coming back as driving culture faded in the 1970s.